Curious if if that meant you were involved more than a typical screenwriting job, and if the script changed in the editing process.
We've always pushed to the boundaries at what writers can do, just because we want to be more involved. The difference between being a producer and not is not a financial one. It's simply the difference between begging to be included in things and being expected to be included in those things. So where Scott and I were more visitors on set for 500 days, and it was great to be there, our job was a little more to be barely seen and not be heard from. And I think with this movie, because we were shepherding it for so long, we were definitely a lot more involved in casting, involved on set, which was great. We want to continue to be more involved.
Yeah, it was definitely a collaborative effort. I mean, every screening we would have the writers, we'd have the associate producers. It was a really good family, and we were all trying to figure out how do we make this movie great. And really, you want your writers around. I think it actually helps. You know, sometimes directors want to and producers want to push the writers away, but in our situation, having them there and having debates and discussions was really, really helpful.
Yeah, in 500 Days of Summer, your protagonist was like kind of timid and introverted, whereas in this movie, it's obviously like more extroverted and kind of charming. Is there one that's more or less difficult for you to write?
No, it really just speaks to the arc of the character. We like to joke, Scott and I and Mark Webb, the director of 500, the arc of the character in 500 is actually the most tiniest of tiny arcs. It's a guy who's scared to ask a girl out, to a guy at the end who isn't, who's willing to sort of take his lumps and whatever might happen. That's really it. Anything else that's talked about is really baggage that we all bring to the movie and not necessarily in the movie. He might go on and make the exact same mistakes with the next girl that he made with the last one. We don't really know. But this time at least, he didn't need his friend to like wrangle her to come out to karaoke or whatever. He just walked up and said, "Would you like to get coffee?" That's really the whole arc. This movie's obviously a little different. Sutter is a character who seems to run away from love and not recognize a good thing when it's in front of him. And he becomes someone who literally runs or drives towards it by the end of the movie and starts looking towards the future and embracing a good thing.
Okay. Oh, we got one more over here.
I saw a lot of John Cusack's character in Say Anything. I don't know if you were a fan of that.
Amazing.
While not a John Hughes movie, you mentioned John Hughes earlier, and I guess there aren't a lot of those kinds of movies these days, what you were saying. Do you think that's because people simply aren't making those, or that look at young adults and growing up and coming of age stories isn't really relevant anymore in this day and age? It doesn't quite work that way.
I think it's very relevant. You guys are still sitting here. Yeah, I mean, I think the studios are scared of those movies, and they sublimated it into vampire stories and zombie stories. I think that those movies are important because, movies, it seems like the studio movies about this type of film, I mean, they're all like, everyone's caked in makeup, there's like the hottest new music, and it's quick cuts. And I think that's a studio way because they're fearful of how they're going to perform, and they want it to appeal to the big masses.
I think there's a little more to it, though. It's a really good question. It's funny how many times people complain about bad movies, and then a lot of people continue to go see bad movies. I mean, it really is a business, and how you spend your money and the movies you go see really impacts what gets made. The reason, speaking for that trend, is just over the years, increasingly, the studios, not that they were never not a business, but they're increasingly run more by people from the marketing side of things. And what that means is the approach to making a movie is not, is this a great story? will this move people? They're not speaking in that language. They're asking questions like, will this play overseas? What will the trailer look like? What will the poster look like? Those are marketing questions. And the more that the studios are run by marketing people and not necessarily people who came up through script development. I mean, years ago in the 70s, there were producers. Later on, there were directors who went on to have top positions at studios. That's crazy right now. It seems mostly a lot of people with strong marketing backgrounds, and that's why this was a tough sell. We don't write movies thinking, well, we need a trailer moment here, or we need a set piece. We write the best movie and hope that people will respond to it.
Have you kept in touch with the director of 500 Days of Summer, Mark Webb, who's since gone on to do The Amazing Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is coming out next year?
He was the first director attached to this, actually.
Really?
Yeah, and then he got sucked into larger movies and has had a lot of fun with that. And there's a big difference as a director between having a few $1 million to play with on a movie like this and $300 million to play with. And I understand that appeal, and it's trying to make a big, broad movie that's going to play on many continents, and he's had a blast with that. It's funny, though, because he kind of, to this day, he still talks about this movie like the ex-girlfriend that got away.
So are you happy for his new ventures?
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
He has a lot of really cool projects in the works that are much smaller in nature that will be coming out sooner rather than later.
I hope so.
It's his favorite ex-girlfriend.
Okay, well, I think that's everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Be sure to Facebook and tweet this movie.